Welcome back to Grappling and Thought. And today we're going to talk about those moments when life happens, something unexpected, or plans change on you, and internally you start having the freak out, the meltdown, the spiral, and you get caught up in a story. Why does that happen? What's going on in our mind the moment something happens? Something changes, plans change, unexpected happens. Well, right away we start overthinking it because the brain hates uncertainty. So that it wants to grab some conclusion, and it's going to grab the first conclusion it can come up with, fine, make up, and usually it's the worst. And it's just that idea that we want a reason. We get an emotional response because that's what fires first, is the emotional response. And so we get that feeling in our body, an emotional response. Our nervous system triggers that in. And then the brain wants to say, why? Why do I feel like this? Where'd this come from? What's the reasoning? Then later, the logical brain steps in. And that's the difference between a reaction you have, either internally or externally. That's the emotional brain, when you react really quick. And then later you reflect on it and maybe you have some regret. That's the logical brain stepping in and saying, well, hey, wait a minute, maybe you overreacted there. Or maybe that was a little much. So we have to recognize that. And it's nothing personal. It's nothing with you individually. It's literally just a skill that hasn't been strengthened. And you can strengthen it by catching yourself. Catching yourself when you feel the emotion coming in, when you feel it in your body, catch that, pay attention to what's in the body, and take a pause and take a breath. Because otherwise, when our brain gets stuck, so life happens, and we start feeling the panic, the meltdown, the overthinking comes in, and then we start getting stuck. So we get stuck on a story. And what happens when we do that? The world kind of shrinks, everything feels bigger and heavier, and we turn to extremes. Always, never, everyone, and there's no way out feelings. And that's just that emotional brain. But if we don't catch ourselves, we get really narrowed in and stuck on one story. And that story, that overthinking in that story, it's a form of control, because we can come up with a reason as to why we feel, the brain comes up with a reason to why we feel the way we do. But if we can take a breath and take a step back and say, okay, wait a minute, what else could be true here? What other possibilities could be here? That lets your brain like, okay, hold on. Maybe what I originally jumped to isn't true. And it just loosens that grip, because that grip can be really tight and you can get really narrowed on one story, and this is the way it is and that's it, and there's no other option, right? You know what I'm talking about. But there's always other possibilities. And you don't know, just because you get stuck on that story doesn't mean it's true. And so being able to take that step back and say, okay, I get it. My mind is stuck on one thing, but what else could be true? What other possibilities could be going on here? And it leaves open. It opens that door a little bit, loosens the grip. And the meltdown slows down. The freak out calms. It's like, okay, maybe this is what's happening. And it just leaves open options. And so the freak out isn't as big. It loosens, it lightens. Because life doesn't pause for the freak out or the meltdown. By the time you react, whatever plans change, life happenings, whatever's happened, it's already over and done with. Now it's how you handle what happened. It's not about just going with the flow all the time, nothing bothers you. It's not about that. It's just about pausing and taking that breath and being steady enough to take that step back and look at other options, so you don't get so stuck on one option. that may not even be true, because we can go on a story for hours. I know, it can stay with you for days of what happened. And then you talk to somebody and they're like, no, it was because blah, blah, blah. Right? I'm sure it's happened to you before. And then you feel silly and you're like, oh, dang, it's been bothering me for days. But if we can take that step back initially and say, maybe it doesn't have to do with me. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's because of this, or maybe this happened, or asking or finding out. Because just because we think of it and it's the first conclusion, the first thing we come up with, doesn't mean it's true. So, first step, awareness, catching yourself in that moment when you feel the emotion coming up and you'll feel it in your body. Take that pause, take a breath, and say, okay, I see what's happening here. I'm going to start spiraling. I'm starting to freak out. I'm jumping to this story. Let me see what other possibilities could be true here. Try it. And let me know in the comments what you think. Till next week, keep looking forward.